Welcome to your weekday cup of the Word. Here on this Friday morning, we're going to start Psalm 18. Now, we're going to cover it in 2 days. We're going to break it in half because this is the longest psalm attributed to David. You can also find this psalm over in 2 Samuel chapter 22, verse 1 through 51, which is great because that allows us to know when David wrote it. And he wrote it after he had rest and peace from his enemies, rest from Saul and all those others that had chased him. And for the first time, David looked back and could say, see, life is okay. I'm not running all the time. And so this psalm is one of great praise for God, and it is a recounting of how hard things were, but how in the end, all turned out well. The first 3 verses really tell you that. See, God delivered David. That's the whole point of the thing. And then after verse 3, David begins to recount how he felt and how bad it was. And he uses a lot of very figurative languages. That's one of David's great strengths, is using picture language to give you the real vision of how bad things were. He talks about, it's like I was drowning in waters. It was like floods, torrents of water were overcoming me. It was like just being hunted down and arrows from every angle. And then he talks about God delivering him. And when he talks about God delivering him, he uses the same kind of figurative language. God sending hailstones and earthquakes and fire from on high. It's not that those things physically happen, but that David's redemption by God was just as powerful for him. It was just like an earthquake came up and swallowed his problems. It's like a bolt of lightning came from heaven and just poof, gone were all of his troubles. Problems that David could have never gotten rid of on his own because they were wrapped around him like cords strangling him. And so David paints this picturesque vision of how dark things were and how impressive God's victory was. Then from about verse 20 through 24, which will finish up the first half of the psalm, David talks about the reason why God delivered him. And the reason was because of the innocence of David. Because David was a righteous man who hadn't done anything wrong. All the things that Saul had accused him of and told everybody about David, slandered him, none of them were true. David was a good man who was living a godly life and had actually done everything in his power to support King Saul while he was king. And so God says, God saved David because of David's clean hands. Because David, no matter what anybody else said, was a good man. And things do turn out right for those who are good and place their trust in a good and righteous God. That's your daily cup. That's the first half of Psalm 18. And we'll see you next week.